Was the tomb really empty? It's a huge question, right? One of the most significant questions in all of human history, and it's shaped our world for the last 2,000 years. So, today we're going to dig into it, looking at the case for this event, not just as a matter of faith, but as a question of history.
Okay, let's just jump right in with this powerful thought from the writer C.S. Lewis. He really knew how to frame things, didn't he? He's basically saying, look, the central claim of Christianity is not some moderately interesting idea. It's either the most important thing ever, or it's nothing. There's just no middle ground.
And that really is the ultimate question. So which is it? It's a question we all kind of have to wrestle with. And the answer, as we're about to see, doesn't really hang on abstract ideas. It hangs on a specific historical claim.
And this idea of it being a really big deal, well, that's not some modern take. The earliest followers of Jesus, they got it. They understood that everything they believed rested on whether or not a specific event actually happened.
I mean, check this out. This is the Apostle Paul writing just a couple of decades after it all went down, and he puts it so bluntly: if Christ has not been raised, then our preaching is in vain and your faith is in vain. The stakes just could not be higher. It all hinges on that empty tomb.
So, to really understand the historical case, we've got to quickly recap the story at the very heart of it all, this wild sequence of events that happened in Jerusalem about 2,000 years ago.
The narrative is probably pretty familiar to you. A man is hailed as a king, then he's betrayed by a friend, condemned by the powers that be, executed by Roman crucifixion, and laid in a tomb. But, and this is the whole point, the story doesn't end there. The claim is that on the third day, he rose again.
But is that just a story? Or is it history? So let's see how historians actually approach this stuff. When they look into ancient events, they're not looking for mathematical proof. It's not like that. They're more like detectives on a cold case, They're weighing all the evidence to find the best possible explanation for what happened.
So here's the thing. Proponents argue that the biblical accounts of the resurrection actually have several hallmarks that historians look for in old documents. We're talking multiple independent accounts, early testimony from eyewitnesses. In fact, some of our sources for Jesus are actually earlier and better than what we have for other huge figures from back then, like Alexander the Great or Julius Caesar. These are the pillars of the argument. Now, this is one of the most fascinating bits of evidence. It's what historians call an inconvenient detail. See, the first eyewitnesses to the empty tomb were women. And if you were making up a story in the first century and you wanted people to believe it, the very last thing you would do is make women your primary witnesses. Their testimony was considered unreliable. It wasn't even valid in court. So the argument goes, the only logical reason to include this detail is because that's actually how it happened.
And then there's the whole transformation of the disciples. I mean, look at this. Before the reported resurrection, they are scattered, they're terrified, they're hiding for their lives. After, something changes them into people who are willing to face persecution, hardship, even execution, all to proclaim one single message: we saw Jesus alive. What could possibly explain such a radical change? Now, critics have suggested other ideas, right? Maybe the disciples stole the body, or maybe they just went to the wrong tomb. But proponents say those theories don't really explain this complete 180 from cowards into martyrs.
So after looking at the historical case, we're left with an even bigger question. So what? Why does this single event from 2,000 years ago still matter so much? What does it actually mean for us, right here, right now?
Why did C.S. Lewis say it was of infinite importance? Well, the answer isn't just in the event itself, but in what that event is said to mean.
The meaning behind the empty tomb is just as profound as the historical claim. It's a message that's echoed through the centuries, and you can really boil it down to a few huge ideas.
First, it says that the injustice and the violence of the crucifixion were not the end of the story. It declares that evil and suffering do not get the final word.
It makes the claim that our greatest fear, death itself, has been overcome. That it's not a final destination, but actually a doorway.
It's a message of just radical forgiveness. That the one who went through all of this did it to make a way back. And that there is literally nothing you could ever do that would put you beyond the reach of that grace.
And at the end of the day, it all boils down to this one simple, world-changing truth, that you are loved. That the creator of the entire universe values you so much that he would step into our messy world to make a way for you to know him.
And so we're right back where we started, We've looked at the story, the historical arguments, the deep meaning behind it all, and now, the most important question is the one that each of us has to answer for ourselves. If he really did leave behind an empty tomb, what does that mean for you?